Hi. Well, it's squirrel time again. Okay, let's look at this. Is the squirrel that we're working on. I've got one that I started with a class, and I want to show you the difference because it really tells something here. So two things. Look at the little squirrel's nose. This is off to a good start. Now, look at this little squirrel's nose. He looks totally deformed, and his nose looks too wide across there. It's not. That's part of the optical illusion. It just needs to be wider at the top. I once had this client, the mother wanted her to get a nose job because she thought her nose was too wide, and all it was all the makeup at the top, making the top of her nose look narrow. That's another story for another time. Okay, so anyway, the squirrel has the same problems that poor teenage girl whose mother, whatever, gave her a complex. Okay, so the other thing I want you to notice, now here, I've used the same colors, I think, that I used here, but here I went and I modified, I did some mixes that were modified. So this is a reddish brown, and this is, kind of blue-gray. And there you can see a little bit of the yellow tones. Now this is just the underneath. I don't know how noticeable it'll be at the end, but I think this is a better start. But what I want to point out is how colorful. If you just look at just this. Let's see, does that show? Yes. Look how colorful that looks. So even though these are close to neutral, these are dulled down colors, and yet when you see them next to each other, they look quite colorful. The point that I try to make frequently is that it's not about bright colors, it's about how you use them. So just something to think about. All right, here we go. Let me make sure I've got this placed correctly. Okay, I must have shifted something. All right, right there, I think. So we're going to start out putting bark in, or the beginnings of bark. This is the first stage. We're fixing to do the second stage, and there will still be a third rework touch-up thing that happens later on. I have here a cut-up credit card. And, the thing about cutting up a credit card as opposed to using a palette knife, you can make these all kinds of widths. You could make these with little shapes in here, if you wanted grooves or something. So you could take a credit card and make many tools out of the one card. I haven't found that the curved corners are very useful for anything. I'm sure they are, but I haven't had them make any difference. Okay, so let's just try this. And I'm going to start up here. I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. In fact, I'm not going to do the whole thing on camera probably, but I have burnt umber that it's been sitting with water on it, so it's thick. Can you see on the brush, it's not like dripping off. That's like really thick paint. See that? Okay, and I might take some of my permanent brown and just shift color there a little bit. And one could also squeeze that brush out because I don't want to thin my paint down. Use a little bit of indigo if you wanted to, because that will make some nice dark gray areas. Well, let's see. Let's just paint in that edge right there. I'm keeping that lighter because I'm not going to scrape that part. So maybe we'll go down like that far. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this. Oh, well, I could come on down further. So I'm getting a texture on that. It's not quite maybe a texture that I want, but it's not really hurting things either. Let's see. So we need to leave a gap. I can also turn this sideways and make it. So I want to take my ideas from the actual tree, but that doesn't mean that I think I have to do them just that way. But you see, we are getting actually from the paper a nice texture that I like. We're also getting those really dark, crisp edges, you know, where the bark is casting a shadow. Oh, let's just make a wide spot there. So here's the thing. I don't like that shape. Let's change it. So then I'll just kind of lightly, this is already drying over here. Okay. So the thing is, you don't want a bunch of straight lines. You want interesting things going on. And here, this is, I'm going to leave this dark maybe, but I can add, I think I'll scrape that. See, that's going dry on me. And that's going to be darker. And I'm okay with that, but what I might want to do is I might want to soften this edge and let that stay dark, or I could wet it. Okay, let's just see what happens if I wet it and scrape. That's thinner paint, but you can see I can get some nice things happening there. Okay, so I'm having fun, so I'm going to keep on going. If I wasn't having fun, I'd do something else. So, like I said, I'm going to fill some areas in later, too. Maybe I'll just... And I still like using some of that red. In fact, there's some really red-looking places down in here, and I'm thinking about making some of those shadow areas with red in them later. And the edge of the tree, I don't want to smooth that out. I want that interesting bark shape. Okay. See on these edges on here? I want all that. Okay, so I'm going to fade that out a little bit. And here we go again, because I thought I might just go up in there a little bit. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I could scrape out in here as long as I wipe this off so I don't pull paint out into there. I can keep this interesting edge. I'm definitely going to do some work on that interesting edge later, though, because I want it to be really, really interesting. So you can see right down in here, that all goes darker. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this technique in there, but then later we'll come over it and put a glaze over some areas to darken them. So I'm going to continue on down doing this, and then I'll be back. Well, I've decided to do something here. So I am coming back with a little bit of paint on this and just adding a little bit back in some places. I think I kind of lost my bark shapes. This is where you really have to think about the shapes you're making, and I think I didn't do quite so well. I did better up here, and then as I came down here, I started getting a little bit tired of it and in a hurry. Sometimes it's better to just stop when you feel like that. Now, we're still going to put, I'm still going to come and put some strong darks in here and add in some shapes and play with it some, but not today. So, So let's go back to forming a squirrel. Now, one thing that works rather nicely when you're making some squirrel hair, that's what we're doing. We're making squirrel hair, and gee, I think I gotta go clean a plate out. Back in a minute. Okay, so now we're working on the squirrel. Oh, whoops. Now we're working on the squirrel, and basically I've got a gray here, It's just it's not a brownish gray. It's just almost a neutral gray. And over here, I have raw sienna and with a little bit of permanent brown in it. So I can get a little bit more depth in my color, and it's a little more exciting because we got a little bit of red in there. So let's see where we should work. I warmed up over here. Oh, let's see. Here's a place that has a lot of red in it, right there. And then we go under here, and it's really it's the same colors, but they're very much in shadow, and they're very fuzzy soft in here. You can't, I think the hair there may actually be softer too, but it's also just, it's in shadow. It's kind of fuzzy, just like the tail is back here. Okay, so let's do a little bit at a time here. I may kind of skip around from his face and back down here. So I'm putting in like little strokes, but I could put them in really fast. And the thing is, if you leave a bunch of strokes there, that can just look real bad. Real bad. So immediately, I'm just running a tiny area, and I'm going to soften some edges. You could even pull some little hairs out, maybe. I don't have enough paint down here to do that. You can do little things like that sometimes at the edges of some areas, and that's kind of nice. Here, I want to soften that some more because I want this to feel rounded, and it wasn't. And then I'm going to put a little water right down here because I see a little darker streak. Is this showing? Okay. I see a little darker streak of color right through here, and I just want soft edges on it. You know, you can get as picky with this as you want or not. Now, right in this area, I think I need to take a little color out. I think I put a little too much in. Right in this area, the color is lighter, and then it stands out against the shadow down here. So, I need to let that dry. Oh, Sophie is wanting to play. And let's go up here and let's look at these eyes. Well, the first thing that we need to do, I think, because I sense what I think that y'all are going to want. So, I'm going to pick up some black. I should have pre-wet this black. This may not be strong enough. Yeah, maybe it'll work. All right, so we have got a gray here on the eyes. It looks like it's pretty dark, but it's not. It's a gray. So I want you to really concentrate on the shapes that you see in here on the eyes. I think the one on this side is easier. It's got, make sure you got a good point on your brush. Goodness, my phone is dinging a lot tonight. So, see, when you put that black on top, how light this other area looks? Because those are going to be our highlights. There's actually a little area in here. So we got a shape kind of like that. That's really not suiting me. It's not making me happy. Well, I'll go with it. Over here, I think I may be seeing a tree limb reflected. Now, that's the shape of the actual eyeball. See, I want a little shadow right here at the top, and that's a little place. That's it, actually the underneath of the eyelid. And over here, you can see a little place right there. I'm kind of separating it just a tiny bit from the actual eyeball. Okay. So what is really going to make this squirrel work is when we get his eyes right, and there's a whole lot to do there. You can see these light areas, and the lower lid droops down away from his actual eyeball. There is a little almost pouch looking thing there. And that makes his eyes look a lot bigger. See, these eyes look more like little rat eyes because he doesn't have that pouch there yet. I'm just going to pick up burnt umber. And probably what I should do is wait for these eyes to dry, but I'm not going to. So what you're going to have to do is really kind of study these eyes and find this shape and put it in there. If you're not in the mood for detail at this point, don't do it yet. Wait. This little pouch there does a thing like that. Okay, so that's making his eyes bigger already. Now, when we pull these grays in around here, you see he's got that little light-colored rim. Okay, that's going to really frame his eyes. I mean, he couldn't look better if he'd had a professional makeup job there. Okay, so let's try this. Now I'm going to skip that little space under there. And that little shape gets narrower up this way because it's foreshortened. And then we have a little bit of a thing coming down like this. All right, so I've got to soften some edges, but I'm not going to soften the edges up here between the grays I'm putting down in the actual eyeball and the pouch or all of that. I'm going to leave that area alone. So I'm just breaking up those little lines, just like I did down here. He's looking better already. I think I got that a little bit too narrow. You want that to be its full width because that shows his eyes off more. Well, let's see then. Up here, we should have a shape like this. And right in behind the eye right there, there's not that light space showing. And again, part of that's just because it's foreshortened. So I made an actual outline this time so that I wouldn't go in too far. So again, I'm just going to do that. Oh, it looks like eyelashes right now, doesn't it? Looks like really bad fake lashes. Okay, so let's pull in a little of that gray right there, and I'll stop it right there. But you see how now the squirrel has eyes? See how much better you feel about it? I'm thinking that my highlights are just a little bit too dark. I'm really shocked. So I may have to do something with that later, but I don't want to do it right now. This is not the time to mess with it. All right. So over here, this eye is a little bit more towards us, and this one's a little bit more oblique. So this part of the gray doesn't even leave an outline. Oh, I got that too small. You know, I'm not going to leave that too small. I want my squirrel to have pretty eyes. So I'm washing that back, and I'll come back to that later. Oh my, you know, I really don't like this down here either. It's just not adequate. I don't know if it's too late. I've got a real soft brush, a synthetic brush here, but it hasn't been trimmed off. I'm going to see if I can get some of that up. See, so if you messed up like I did, I'm showing you how to fix it. Okay. All right, down here now, this area, we can go ahead and let's pick up a little bit more. If phone is just dinging off the, I started to say off the wall, but it's not on a wall. You know that. Okay. A little bit of the red. This is permanent brown, but permanent brown is a red. And so in behind this part, you know, here's the thing. If I want this to look like hair, I can, let's just make a little bit of a jagged edge on it by painting little strokes. Then as I come down in here, and you're thinking, well, that's too red. Yeah, but we're gonna glaze a gray on top of it, and that's going to be really pretty. Maybe the best area of the painting, unfortunately. So here I am using a brush that's a little bit too small for the job here, because I didn't want to switch out. And same thing right there. Let's just little strokes to kind of, okay, so this whole area in here is darker. I'm just gonna, yep, that's all squirrel there. I'm just gonna fill this in, and then as we come up in here, let's go back to just, oops, come over here, just plain raw sienna. And let's keep that edge soft. Am I getting a little bit darker than this squirrel? I think I am. So if that matters to you, be careful there. I'm going with it. All right, like that. So right in here, under his cute little cheeks, see there's a little bit more color right in there. There's almost a line. See, you can see a line over here. And there's a place right over here too, but it doesn't stand out very much. I think that's kind of like wrinkly fat cheeks. You know, it kind of overlaps like, well, it just kind of overlaps. Okay, so the thing is, this is pretty wet, but that's enough. Now I need to come in, soften it, and it is way too dark. And so I'm also going to probably pull some color up. I'm going to turn my brush this way as I'm softening some edges. You see, I've got some little light colored gaps in there yet. I want those. They're very tiny, but they really add to the direction of the fur. Did you know foxes climb trees? I don't mean like jump up into some low-lying branches. I mean climb right up the side of a straight up and down trunk. I'm going to have to send that video out. It's amazing. Okay, so that's still too dark, but I kind of like it. I'll pull up a little bit. That ought to do. You know, I'm just going to have a more colorful, can't talk, colorful squirrel, that's all. That's just how it's going to be. You know, he looks a little more colorful on that side. I guess it's just shadows. They're pretty symmetrical, I think. Okay, so there's a little, just like this one had a little streak, which, oh, totally disappeared. Let's just put that back in because I want that. Let's get a little. You got to have enough of the raw sienna in with the red, or it may start looking kind of pinkish. You don't want that. So, let's see, over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay in water. Just a little bit of water. I'll pull some of it back up. Just a little bit more color right along there. I don't know how we're going to make these claws stand out against this trunk. My trunk's a lot darker than this trunk. If I had it to do over again, I guess I'd have made my initial wash lighter. Or maybe I wouldn't have even used an initial wash. Who knows? Well, that's looking pretty good. There's a lot of colorful area right there. It's got gray over it, but there's a fair amount of color in there. Or that's the way I'm seeing it. So, I think all of this needs to be a little bit darker. Okay. And right in here above the mouth, that stays pretty light. So my class, my Thursday class, and I have been discussing his mouth. He has one crooked tooth in the middle. Okay, and we don't really want one crooked tooth in the middle. I'm trying to figure out how to make the mouth look right. But that doesn't look right either. We've got to have something coming up this way. I just didn't want to emphasize a tooth there. I think he's sort of got a hair lip. You know, like a rabbit. That would make sense. Okay, so I've got this shaping. Let's go ahead and let's put the tail in. So what I'm going to do is I want to work my brush this way. So I'm going to turn him that way, and I am going to turn the tail that way. Is this all on the camera? Boy, barely. Let's see. Maybe right there. Okay. So let's put down some water. Clean water. Ooh, I thought I had a clean brush. I didn't. I didn't wash out my brush good enough. It still had tree trunk stuff in it. Okay, well, that's really, 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 really wet. Yeah, very, very, very wet. Okay, I'm going to pull up. It's been sitting there for a few seconds. So I'm going to pull up the excess water, and I'm tilting it so that I can see what I pulled up. It's still got a sheen on it. It's just not totally slippery sheeny. Sheeny, is that a word? Okay. So, because I want really just some soft fuzzy strokes. Now look, you see when I pull out here and I get a little bloom right there on the end? I guess I'm going the wrong way. I guess what I need to do is go this way, and that way the bloomy thing will go on the other part. And there are clumps here. It's not all even the same everywhere. Does things like that. You know, I think that's about it. I'm kind of wanting to do something more, but I think I probably shouldn't. Maybe just a couple. I stroked in the wrong direction again. Would come from the top down. I'm making more tail. Okay, there. That's not too bad. Okay. So, that's drying. Let's see. I know these are yellow leaves up here. And that's kind of a greenish leaf. Oh my gosh, we could put green in here. Okay, so let's get a clean brush. I still don't have it all out of there. Let's take a clean brush and now you want your tail to be dry or else don't get too close to it. And this is a leaf down here. You could keep that or get rid of it. I guess I'll keep it. But there's another, the green leaf. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I've got some kind of yellow that I used before in here. I think that's New Gamboge. It may have a little something else in it too. You know, some of you actually take notes. You could look at your notes. You could call me and tell me, except I'm not answering my phone right now, so it won't work. Okay, down here. So we have a green leaf. Let's just start out with some of that yellow. And then we'll just drop a little. Actually, I'll use a little bit of green. And I'm not doing this because, just because it's in the photo. The photo is giving me an excuse to inject a little bit more color. I already wanted a little bit more color. You know, I like that so well. I think I'll put a little bit up in here too. Yeah, I think so. Not bad, not bad. You know, maybe just a touch more. This is, oops. This is some sap green that I've had in my palette forever because I never use it. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I tend to just take phthalo and mix whatever I want with it. There, that's a little stronger green spot. That's nice color happening there. I like what's going on with the tail. I'm satisfied with what I did with the tail. There's some places I'm not that thrilled with, but I'm happy with the tail. I think I'll make this just a little stronger colored here too. That's a brighter orange. This is not a squirrel color. This is dead leaf color. Yeah. Unlike dead squirrel color. Okay. I probably, well, I'm sure I have more places I need to work on. Wait a minute. I do. Like right here. This comes around with a little more color. Not a lot more, just a tiny bit more. So I just want to soften that. And then same thing here on the other side. Yeah. Right around there. So this gray, whoops, where did my gray go? Oh, here. This gray that comes right down there, it also almost makes a extra like fold in the cheek or something. Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't come back and do this area. But then what I'm looking at is there's almost a little division here. You know, I bet if this guy didn't have fur, he'd have more wrinkles than I do. Okay. Get my hand in the paint. I've still got wet paint here. Oh, okay. This gray, on this side, it looks pretty gray all the way out. I think that's just the difference between the angle that the fur is turned at. In fact, that's going to have to get darker later. We can gray that just a little bit, but keep it real light. So you see the squirrel is beginning to take shape. There's a whole lot left to do to him, but he's beginning to take shape. Okay, I've got a lot of time on the video, so that's it for this week. Next week, the squirrel gets finished. He's going to be magnificent.